Welcome to the Vintage House Show 2021. We are celebrating King Week. It is January the 15th, 2021, Dr. King's birthday, and the beginnings of what I consider sort of King Week, where we celebrate him in our lives, in our communities, and the United States will celebrate him on Monday the 18th. Today's Vintage House Show is really special. We are talking to the gentleman who allowed Lauren Lowry to have a radio show at WNUR, Northwestern University's radio station, 89.3 FM, Evanston, Chicago. And these gentlemen are like the gods of WNUR. First, I will introduce Sweet MD, DJ Sweet MD from the Shy, Whitney Young. What up, Sweet MD? Thanks for being on the show.
Let's go. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you, Lauren, and talk to you and reminisce about the history of NUR and STREETBEAT and Black history and all that good stuff. Looking forward to it.
Well, Sweet MD is even more than just someone who allowed Lauren Lowry to have a radio show at WNUR. Absolutely. He is actually also a father of several Wildcats. Okay, he's just like populating the Wildcat community at Northwestern University. I'm sad that they didn't have radio shows.
Wildcat and others.
Exactly, and others. He contributed to some of the other Illinois schools, that kind of thing. But, really, we're primarily considering, the important kids, okay? The important kids, because you separate the kids.
Yeah, the favorite ones, right?
Exactly.
There you go.
We love them all.
MD, what scriptures that be fruitful and multiply? You are living and breathing.
Yeah, I tried to do my part.
Exactly. Then the gentleman who allowed me to intern with him at WNUR in the spring of 1986. Someone who I got to spend a lot of years. I know. I was like, we're going to try. I don't even know why I did that, because I want to date myself since I'm only 21.
Right. I was 12.
Exactly. Mr. Ira Brown, the eye of WNUR. The eye. That was always sweet, man. The eye. Ira Brown, thank you for being on the show.
You know what? It is all my pleasure. I when you sent me the text and email, there was no way I could say no. But first of all, I want to say Happy Founders Day. Yo, Ski.
Thank you. Ski yo.
But it's a great day. That was a time period of my life that was very enjoyable. I was going outside, the boundaries of, you take your classes, you do whatever internship, and you are motivated to do what you have to do to get to your desired goal, right? And so, because of Sweet MD, who introduced this to me, that allowed me to go outside of the parameters of what I wanted to do. So I appreciated that, as well as having fun with you when starting that spring quarter. That was an opportunity in my life that will always be burned into my memory. So, and I thank you for carrying the torch on, and
yes,
and documenting the history of house music of WNUR, and I went up there recently, and I don't even recognize the studio. So I appreciate you and thank you for your efforts and energy, not only towards house music, but also towards WNUR, which is a vehicle for house music and music in its entirety. So thank you, Lauren, for carrying this on.
No problem.
Yes.
I enjoy understanding Black history, and WNUR has a very rich Black history. And oftentimes in Black music, we'll forget the pioneers and the people who have created the sounds because other cultures love it and manipulate it. And every now and then, the history is forgotten. And so that's why we're here today. Black history is critically important. We're coming up on Black History Month, and we really want to make sure that the young students, the students and people in the future will be able to understand some of the history of the Street Beat Show and of WNUR. And, again, there's great shows on WNUR, the jazz show, rock show, freeform. There's all kinds of sort of great shows. Jazz show was always renowned in Chicago. And, Street Beat, again, is also now 30 something years old and a real staple of the house music community, the genre. And interestingly, again, you still have people who recognize WNUR as how they got their start. And one of those starts is really, Sweet MD really sort of carried on some of that start. But we're going to start with Sweet MD's Chicago origin story. So we understand how you became interested in music generally, and then, of course, a part of the show. So, Sweet MD, Meredith Johnson, tell me a little bit about, where you were born, where you grew up, what community, grammar school, high school. Give me a little bit of that trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up in Chicago, born and raised South Side, and grew up in Chatham, actually, kind of lower middle class area. Went to McDade Elementary, Wendell Smith, and then went on to Whitney Young High School. And really, as I was going through really McDade and Whitney Young, that's when I started to meet a lot of the people that would end up being really influential within the house scene, like a Chip E. We went to grade school together. First Lady, we went to grade school together.
What grade McDade. School was McDade. Okay, got it. Where's McDade?
Yeah, McDade. Yeah, absolutely. And a number of others. Dwayne Woods, we went to McDade together, actually lived right around the corner from each other. And that's really what kind of got me interested in music. There were some pioneers in the neighborhood, like Ernest Nathan, who was big on the DJ scene back in the probably early 80s. And he would DJ at Mendo, and, all of us that were a little bit younger would kind of look up to him. And then we kind of followed Dwayne Woods' coattails because he was the one that always had the equipment. And so he was the guy whose house we go over and we just hang out and play records for hours. And it started off playing. And then once we learned about mixing, that's what we would do. We just go there and just mix for hours and hours and hours, just perfecting the craft. And then as I, matriculated through high school, had a chance to go to various parties where I met different people and hanging out with him, it got to the point where he was the one that was always supplying the sound for all the parties. And so whether it was at Steve Hurley's house for his sister's Sweet 16 or a Whitney Young prom or a Kenwood prom or dance, I'm following around and I'm, I guess putting in work, DJing and learning and getting known to the point where I got to Northwestern and it really started to, I guess, kind of make a name for myself on the DJ scene. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of where you want to go, but
that's perfect. That is perfect. I want to talk just quickly, just to go back a little bit and say, so you're going to different parties and things. Are you going to clubs? Are you going to sort of the basement parties? Again, the Sweet 16s. What kind of sort of parties was Dwayne applying, allowing his sound systems to be used? Where were you following him? Where were you going?
Yeah. So it was a mixture, a lot of house parties, right? And we even had a DJ club in the neighborhood. It was Dwayne. It was Eric E.T. Taylor. He was part of the club. A couple of other gentlemen. And so we would do parties in the neighborhood, really all over the south side of Chicago. But since Dwayne was supplying equipment, he was supplying equipment to dances, to proms. He supplied equipment to Mendo's, bi-level disco. So I had a chance to go there and spend. I think that's where I met E. Smooth and his cousin, Dewey Bullock, the Mendo cousins. Yeah. And then actually I have a first cousin who was also part of their crew. And so we all hung out together in that time, going to parties, doing parties, but mainly house parties and then some of the high schools in the area.
Got it. Well, Ira Brown, give me your little background, Chicago background history.
Oh, it's a humble background. So, growing up on the south side of Chicago, I will actually say that, so, as I was thinking about like 2 minutes before this interview, So my introduction to house music, I remember my parents. My parents, you know, they are first generation from Mississippi, and they are, you know, R&B. But I remember my mom listening to this this song "I'm Every Woman" by Shaka Khan, and it seems to stand apart from everything else she was listening to, right? And it kind of caught my ear. I was like, "Whoa, what is that?" Um, and so I would say that was my introduction, right? That was the door opening, and so you know, I went to probably the greatest high school ever, Mendel Catholic High School.
Mendel, love with Mendel, yes.
You know, the Mendel parties are legendary. I was a member of the legendary award-winning marching and jazz band, Mendel Band, and so just thinking about, you know, some of the Mendel parties, some of the DJs that came out of Mendel, to include Dewey Bullock. You know, that was my, I guess, indoctrination into house music. And then transitioning into Northwestern, it was because we were pretty much, granted, our address was an Evanston address. We essentially went to college in Chicago. Given when we were there, the Chicago influence was very thick. Not just the culture from Chicago was very thick. And part of that culture is house music. Given, you know, we were all kids of the mid to late 80s. For me, you know, mid 90s. But anyway. And so that transition into Northwestern, and, you know, people from, you know, other of the family from Cleveland, from Detroit, from Los Angeles, from New York, while especially like places like New York and Detroit, that they've had like a taste, that they were able to really get the full experience of house music on Northwestern's campus, because there was such a thick contingent from Chicago who were on campus.
Yeah.
And I must say, part of that was, you know, the DJs that were there, to include Sweet MD, that DJ'd a lot of the parties, that also was an influence on WNUR. So that was kind of my matriculation, so to speak, into house music.
Got it. And so you're at Northwestern University, Sweet MD, and how did you hear about WNUR? What was your introduction to WNUR?
So it's funny. So I was, I think it might have been New Student Week, and so I go to one of the parties, because they're having parties every night, and I'm free. I'm in college, you know. I'm excited to be from up under the strict thumb of my mom.
After we studied all day, right?
Yeah.
He's free. He was free.
That came later. and so I was at a party, and so being a DJ, I mean, I did what DJs do. You go up to the DJs that are DJing, and you go talk to them. And so I think the DJ who was spinning was Easy Cross.
Yeah.
And I consider him a true pioneer in WNUR legends. I mean, he had been at the station for years, actually, and he was the producer of STREETBEAT at the time. And he started to tell me about the station. And so, you know, I'm saying, oh yeah, I spin. And usually DJs are like, okay, well, you say you spin. Okay, yeah, right. But he was really coming. He's like, really? Well, here, come to my apartment. And he had a turntable set up. And so I go there and I start spinning, and he's like, oh, wow, you really can spin, and doing tricks and stuff. And actually that's kind of how I got the name Sweet. I'm in his apartment and I'm doing some tricks with the turntables, and he's like, man, that is sweet. I'm going to start calling you Sweet.
Nice.
And then it just kind of stuck. And but he had me come through the station, and I think I interned with him and T-Shot Blee that first quarter. And then I think by winter quarter, I think I had my own show.
Thank you for the house. I mean, the history of
Street Beat
with Lee.
Who was, I think, a year ahead of us. He also graduated from Mendel, so he is part of that Mendel Catholic legacy.
He is, for sure. I want to get Easy Lee and T-Shab Lee on a call. I did talk to Magic Mike, so he could help us, facilitate that call at some point. But T-Shab Lee is hard, man. T-Shab Lee is like hard. He does not want to do any interviews, man. He did one for me years ago where I went to his job interviewing for 2 hours. And I ain't seen him since, But anyway, so thank you so much for that. That was really fantastic. You had some support freshman year. You were already introduced, new student week, you're already introduced to the station, understanding the music form, etc., that kind of thing. Ira, tell me, how did you become familiar with WNUR?
Well, being an occasional attendance at the parties at Northwestern, house parties at Northwestern.
Occasional.
When I first met MD, we kind of hit it off, and we're talking to him. I'm talking to him, and he said, "Hey," and I think this is my sophomore year. This is our sophomore year, I believe. So there were some openings, and he was like, "Are you interested in coming down?" I was like, "To do what?" And so that was the conversation, and it progressed into me having I believe a Tuesday night show. Sweet and B and I was his and one. I was his, like, I guess, his Robin. And so I remember that two-door hatchback where we had the speakers out of the hatchback and all the crates and the equipment, and I'm helping them set up and break down for different parties on Northwestern campus, and so that was the beginning of a long-term relationship. He and I'm very thankful that he saw something in me to even ask me to take on a role at WNUR. So I thank you for that. So that's how I became one of the DJs at WNUR.
Ira, what I didn't emphasize as much, and I think, certainly Whitney Young has a background in, sort of a legacy of house music, but that was recent history. Mendel, on the other hand, from the 70s, were having events and parties and really ushering in what this new music form was going to be, and training through Kirk Townsend and others, the genre of house music. Talk to me quickly about Mendel Catholic. Tell us where it is, where it was, and some of the house music pioneers that influenced you, or at least you knew the music was all around you. So even if you didn't want to know house music, you had to know it, So tell me some of those things.
So, it is, I remember I went to St. Sabina, Father Mike Flager, for undergrad. And I remember we had, or I think it was a week or 2 weeks where the different high schools, Catholic schools, would come in and do their recruiting trip. And I remember what stood out to Mendel with Mendel is not only being a Mendel man, but also the parties at Mendel. I'm just like, wow, that's interesting. No one else has talked about, parties in high school.
Right.
But that's just part of the culture. Not only, not only just the Mendel parties, but it kind of went into not only the athletic teams, but also the band. It was just part of the culture at Mendel. And as I stated, there's Dewey, and even now the class of '84, we do there's monthly virtual house parties, and so that's a shameless plug. So go to my Facebook, Ira Brown, and you can find the links for our Mendel Catholic house parties that we do monthly, and it's Dewey and other legendary house music DJs that participate in that.
Are you kidding me? You all having parties with the legendary Dewey, who I don't know, who should be on the show, on the Vintage House Show.
You know what?
Please.
Let me connect you to Dewey.
Please.
And then we'll get there. And I must say, the other thing, again, Mendel was kind of like, not tooting our horn, but we were kind of like the axis for house music and the world. For example, First Lady, who she was on the radio, and Chrissy Hop Henderson. She was in Chicago, then she's in Indianapolis, and I think she's doing a kind of a dual gig now. She's one of the ladies of house music, and so she interned on my show as well.
Wow.
Not that I'm patting myself on the back, but
I have a great legacy there. See, now you're making me proud. That's awesome.
So Chris, you need to get Chrissy on. Have you had Chrissy on your show?
Chrissy's been on several shows. Okay. We did live events with her and a bunch of with her, Lori Branch, of course, Celeste.
Okay.
Other girl named Von Zell, who I guess went to Kenwood. There's a few other people who are, we just had a whole thing with Fantastic Four. Angie Hurley, Chrissy, the Rick Lenoir's sister. It was a group of 4 women who were a part of a collective at some point. But go ahead. Okay. So Mendel being the world of the epicenter of house music, again, starting with Kurt Townsend, employing Wayne Williams, employing Jesse Saunders,
Blade, yes. And I think, Chrissy was one of the females that were also DJing during some of the parties. And she was a Mendel band cheerleader.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, she's probably going to get hate mail after this, but yeah. Yeah, she was a cheerleader. Shut
up. That is crazy.
As well as Lisa Ray was also a part of she was I think she was either pom-pom or cheerleader, yes.
Oh my God. So, I just saw this interesting interview with her. So that's really fantastic. I'm going to, again, bring you back a little bit before Northwestern as well. Did you have any sense as young people that this was a new genre of music, that this was something that was special and that was sort of, this was a Black sort of birthed genre of music? Were you cognizant of the power of that at all, or what was happening? Or were you just sort of doing your thing and enjoying the music? Some people, certainly Northwestern people, tend to be really in tune to, like things, more creative, like more in tune to where some people, like myself, I'm just enjoying life. I wasn't thinking about one, you know what I mean? Like some people know, hey, this is special. Hey, this is something. What were you all's? Sweet MD, tell me about sort of your thought about the music form as a young person learning.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I really saw it in the early stages, and I saw it going through its evolution. Because when I first started playing house music was disco music, right? It was something with a thumping beat. It had the hot vocal, the nice break. And so we were always trying to find the most hard to find disco albums that no one had ever heard of, but we knew they played it at the Box or at the Warehouse. And so we spent many hours digging through old vintage record stores looking for records like that. But then once Jesse Saunders started making electronic music, and then you had other DJs getting involved in that, then we knew something special was happening. And at first it sounded like, okay, well, they're just copying it. But then it's almost like they were making it better. I mean, it wasn't real instruments, but it still had that driving beat. It was easier to mix because it was electronic and it wasn't, trying to time, live instruments. And so I knew something special was starting. And sometimes I do regret not staying with it. I mean, I did get out of DJing for a while. I needed to finish school and graduate and start living life. But there was a time that I was considering that as a career choice, right? I was at a crossroads at school, and it was like, my dad told me, he said, maybe you need to give this DJing thing a real look. And not so much the spinning records, but being a radio disc jockey.
Right.
And I thought about it, and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to stick with math and and try to get a job in the corporate world and make some money.
Right.
But little did I know at that time that those DJs would take a whole people like Steve Hurley would then start to travel to Europe and take house music over there. Yes. I mean, even a gentleman from NUR, Rob Olson, who we all know. Was one. I think he was the Monday night jock.
He was there when I was there.
He was instrumental in taking music overseas because he would always go over to visit relatives over in the UK, and he was always talking about how he's taking this music over there, and he would bring music back, and so he took some of the Chicago music over there, and I know that helped expose it to the world.
You know, I think again that's why I say when we think about WNUR and its impact on house music, again, Rob Olson was taking music globally. He was in Amsterdam, he was in the UK, and then he also had a 20-year radio career, in fact. So yeah, WNUR is so instrumental. And you know, we'll talk about sort of some of that as well, like who are those people you were bringing into the studio to talk. But Ira, talk to me too about what your thoughts are about your understanding of, you know, what this music form was and how it was forming, and it was Black music and Black people were creating this music. Did you have a sense of that?
Well, you know what, you know, as I matured, I think that's when I formed a, you know, I realized how important house music was. You know, coming up through, you know, 7th, 8th grade, and then through middle Catholic, it was just, you know, I'm having a good time, right? That's the environment. That's all we knew was house music. And then as I went to Northwestern, and then post Northwestern, then grad school, and then moving into, you know, other environments, you know, outside of Chicago, that's when I appreciated what house music is. House music is, now I'm a Christian, so, but house music is almost like it has the influences of a religion. It's just like when you're sitting in the car or you're sitting at home and outside of a club setting, you know, Let No Man Put Us Under or any other house song comes on, and it just takes over you, and it
speaks to your soul.
Yeah, it speaks. Yeah, and so it's like it's almost like religion. It's just like, you know, it's more than just music, and its reaches is beyond, you know, the Chicago or Detroit to New York. It's beyond that. It's worldwide, and so I would tell you, Daryl Pandy, right? He got his start at Mendel Catholic talent show.
Nice.
I remember when his first talent show, I think it was my freshman and sophomore year at Mendel Catholic. You know, he came on the stage, and I believe, well, I won't say he grew up in, I believe he grew up in Cabrini Green, but I'm not sure. But he came out on stage, and people was like, okay, what? And then when he opened his mouth, the entire gymnasium focused in on this man on stage. And that was his foot into the pond of house music. I was in the band. I was sitting in the band, and I remember his piano player, his keyboard player, sat down, and he looked, and everybody was looking at him like, okay, who is this, and what is he about to sing? And his piano player looked at us and was like, just wait till he opens his mouth. And the rest is history.
Daryl Pandy, a house music vocalist and gospel vocalist.
Yeah.
He was a Chicago, you know, sort of staple, one of the greatest voices in the music business. And unfortunately, may he rest in peace. But, you know, again, Mendel Catholic birthed a lot. And it seems like you all kind of understood at a certain point how important this music was. I will tell you that I think maybe my junior year, WBMX called the station while I was on there and says, hey, we want you to come down for an interview. You know, you don't know whether or not it's real or whatever. So I was like, you know, I called my mom only because normally when I would go downtown, someone would see me and be like, oh, I saw your daughter downtown. And mom's like, shouldn't you be in Evanston reading a book? And so I was like, so I was like, exactly. So I was like, let me call her and tell her that I'm probably going to go downtown to this interview. And she was like, I didn't send you to Northwestern to be a radio disc jockey. Didn't you say you wanted to be a lawyer, an engineer, or something? And then I just decided not to go. What a tragedy. All these different things.
Oh, wow.
And you told me that years later. I was like,
what a tragedy. Just a sad shame.
right.
But it's good that you all knew. I mean, again, I didn't know. And again, it wasn't my idea. I just loved the music. And I felt like I should be playing it, not champagne and brandy. You know what I mean? So I was like, why are they playing that? So, I think that that's really sort of good information. I want to tone in now really to the station. So WNUR, you got your first show. This is 1984, 1985, 1986 for both of you. 1984. Who do you remember outside of Easy Lee who was at the station? And T-Shop Lee. Who else is at the station with you?
Well,
there was a girl.
Yeah, Rob was there for sure.
Her name.
Carmen was at the
Carmen
station.
Hudson, yes.
Yeah, I think she got her start under Easily as when he was producer. There was a lady named Lady CTA.
Yes.
Oh man, we gotta find her.
Sherry Watts, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm writing down her
she
name
had a show
right
at the
now.
time.
She was a year ahead of us, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, who's the young lady who was our year?
Was it Lala?
Lala, yes, Lala Mitchell.
Yes.
Ooh, do you think we can find them? Are they in your class?
What was her handle on the station?
So what was Sherry? What was Sherry's last name again?
I think it was Sherry Watts. I'm pretty sure she's on Facebook.
Yeah,
that's please connect her. If you find her, just do a link, a group email, something. Okay, so those are people on station. Were there a lot? So when I look at this, I'm going to throw up an artifact real quick, so you can talk to me. And I've spoken to these people early on when we were sort of looking at putting together this this history. This is an artifact, WNUR. This is 1984. 1984. They changed the Soul Show to the Street Beat show. The Soul staff thinks this name is more indicative of the kind of music that we play. And Catherine Kerr was the Soul producer. Catherine Kerr is a woman of European descent heading this Soul show. What else, who else was going on? And again, the former Soul Show producer, Steve Kahn, who I also spoke to, also someone who may not be European, but is white, was heading. I mean, so I'm looking at these black music forms being, at Northwestern being headed by people who are not black, the creators of this music genre. So I'm wondering again, we got Rob Olson there, who was an Evanston guy, who was a night school student. You're at Street Beat again. Did you think about this as black music, and how were you sort of thinking about the music form, given electronica is a part of this, UK music is a part of this? What were you thinking about the music and sort of the beginnings of the music, and were you concerned at all about this being a black music form? Did you care?
So for me, at the time when I was a DJ, I didn't consider it to be a quote unquote black music. I just considered it to be music. Music that was born out of the South Side of Chicago. Music that spoke to what our environment was at the particular time. It never, even through high school, college, and beyond, grad school, I never considered it to be a quote unquote black music genre. It was music. It was a form of music.
And I'm looking at some of the soul playlist at the time, 1984. We've got Soul Sonic Force. We got Shy Lights, Nona Hendrix. This is a blend of funk, R&B, jazz. Stanley Clark is on this. Kenny G. It's such a melting pot of that, and it's kind of interesting when you think about sort of what they were suggesting was, sort of soul music, and it was starting to move because I'm seeing something. Rapper's Revenge here. Mike G. I don't know this person at all, but maybe you all do. The awesome foursome Frankie Baker breakdown. I'm like, it is moving in a sort of direction. I actually applaud whoever decided to, think about this music genre as not just soul anymore. Now it is sort of it's more street music and it's doing something different, that kind of thing.
Well, I bet Prince Easy Lee had some influence there because I know he was at the station at that time, and he was from New York, and his heavy influence. I mean, that's where rap, really originated, and that's what he brought. I mean, at the parties, he was playing hip hop, playing hardcore rap on the radio station. He was playing hardcore rap, and so I'm sure that reflects some of his influence at the time.
And the thing is, and I would say
and I was saying during when Sweet MD was the producer, it kind of took a slight turn toward while we still had our hip hop opportunities. It seemed like house music kind of took over during a 2 to 4 year span. MD, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, we did reserve a spot because, we would always get calls, and it seemed like every other party, there would be the kids from Evanston that would show up at the party and beg, play some hip hop, play some hip hop. So we did reserve a Saturday afternoon show that Larry Myers led, and he was also from
there.
Yeah, and so. And that was also, I guess, a burgeoning art form at the time. So it was almost like house and pop were competing. It's just that since we were the Chicago influence, and with the students that were there that were really embracing house, and then the hip hop generation was smaller, but then once it started to turn commercial, then they really took a hold as well, and they just launched like a rocket.
Yeah, that started happening as we were graduating, I think.
I think I remember playing both house and hip hop on the show because Ice-T was coming out, LL Cool J was coming out. And these were, again, these music forms were birthed at the same time generally. And, the New York influence would come in. Yeah, again, our student, our friends, our classmates who came in from East Coast were always like, coming in. I interned, I would, mentored, a few of the younger people, and they were all hip hop DJs. So they'd be at my show trying to play this. I'm like, no, I'm playing this. So I got my playlist. But every now and then I would check it out because they would be playing some. I remember, oh my God, I can't remember some of the women DJs. Anyway, they were the hype. They were just awesome. You know what I mean? So I would throw in a couple of those. They're like, dang, this is tight. So. That used to be a heck of a lot of fun that, from what I remember. So talk to me about some of the people who you would have in the studio. What do you remember about, sort of involving some of the Chicago people into WNUR sort of culture?
Yeah, so, I have to be honest. I'd love to say that I had this foresight that I saw that these people were going to be stars, and so I wanted to bring them through. But really, it started as a party. These are my boys. We would DJ together and party. I'm like, hey, come through the station, let's hang out. And we would have a ball. Just telling jokes and playing music and just having a ball. And then after a while, it's like, maybe we should kind of formalize it a little bit more and start to ask some questions. And so I think the first person that I officially, and I met him at COD because I was spinning at COD. They had called me up to come there. It was a Northside club. And I met Frankie Knuckles.
Where was COD's? Do you remember where COD's was?
Yeah, they were right on, I think it was like Devon or Hollywood, somewhere in there, right around that bend. Yeah, it was right on the corner. I just can't remember the streets. I used to live a block from there. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think that's it. Devon and Hollywood, it's stop-start. So, yeah, we got it. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so I had to meet him there, and as we were talking, and he had heard of WNUR, and we were talking, and I said, well, you know what, you should come through, or at least let's do an interview. And so he agreed, and so we set it up, and we did a phone call. He called into the station, and I just started to ask him about house music and really his DJing, on the East Coast, and then coming to Chicago DJing in clubs. And then he had also started by that time to remix and produce records. And so talked to him some about that. And it was really neat. It was also kind of surreal. And this was even before, actually, he was already sort of a legend at the time. And I know he would get bigger after that, but it was really neat to interview him. And then after that, it was just using the network, brought Steve Hurley through because the DJ club I was sort of affiliated with him and his crew. So brought him and I think it was Keith Nunnally. That was his thing.
JMC.
So they came, yep, and we did an interview there. And then a number of other people. I mean, Tyree Cooper would come through. Of course, Christy, she was interning with but she hung out at my show a couple of times as well. Of course, E Smooth and Dewey, E.T. Taylor. The other thing I'll have to admit, and this is, some years later, I would also bring these guys through because I didn't have a car at the time. And when I was living on the South Side and doing a summer show and doing Friday and Saturday night shows up in Evanston, I needed a ride. And so oftentimes these guys were my ride. And so we just come hang out, spin records in the studio, and just have a ball.
Wow, that's cool. That is so cool. And I agree. We just hang out. I used to bring all of the South Side of Chicago, certainly in the summertime, at the station. We'd be there 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. If the Freeform guy didn't show up, we would just be there hanging. I was playing hardcore rap. Bad. I had a bad story about that. But yeah, we would just straight kick it. Ira, what do you remember about? Did you ever bring people in? I mean, I know I spent a lot of time with you. Were you just enjoying the record playing? What was your experiences in the station?
So my experiences was Chrissy Hotman Mix Henderson, who I knew from Mendo. Well, we connected, and she came up and she spent some time. And actually, there were a couple of times that I couldn't make it to the show because I had a test the next day, and so she kind of took over for me a couple of times. So
wow.
Yeah. I didn't tell my producers who didn't be there. But so it was from the people I went to high school with. I remember my uncle who would religiously tune into the show, and he would call me the when he calls me all the time. I was like, hey, and so he would also, and my brother, who when my first year of DJing, he was still a freshman. He was a senior at Mendo, so being there, he would also listen and promote it to his classmates. So, it was just it was a vehicle. WNUR was a vehicle, not only for Evanston but Chicago and house music. So
did you all spend any time at the record pools? Or did you all go get music? And did you all give me some of that experience, sort of being in Evanston and then sort of dealing with getting some of the records?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time at record pools. One of the DJ friends I had actually worked at one, and so we spent a lot of time there. And then I spent time meeting the people who were running the pools, and it was great to be able to represent WNUR. Because usually DJs had to go buy records, Imports, et cetera, was the main store where all the DJs in the area bought the new records that were coming out. But the cool thing about record pools is that you got to listen to records well before they ever came out. I mean, like even months before. And so sometimes you could even break out. Sometimes it was, taking a chance. You think it sounds hot and you play it and nobody likes it. Or sometimes you would find a gem. But yeah, I spent lots of times at record pools. I even worked with, I think her name was Jeannie or Janine at Imports. And so she would give us records too. So we had a lot of records coming in from stores and record pools during that time. And thinking back on it, it was really good for the station. But it was times I probably should have been in class, should have been studying. I'm out talking to people about getting
Now, Imports, that was on Clark, right? That was the
Imports on Plymouth Court, the 700 block of Plymouth Court.
What was the record store on Clark downtown? I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, so that was the place that I went, and secondarily, I was at MD's place borrowing stuff to take and play on the show. So I was taking advantage of him going to Imports and picking up stuff. So.
Well, I was always so appreciative because I didn't go anywhere. I just used the records that were there, and of course, all the staples were there. All my favorite songs were there, new songs, and I loved I should have a picture of all of the comments of the people telling you what's on this, what's in this on this vinyl record, and is it good, is it bad, that kind of thing. I used to love all the comments. Used to crack me up. I was like, I'll check it out. I would just take stuff off like middle. It would be like, yeah, I just blend something else in. Like, I don't like that. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Because I never got in there early. I never got in there early to check things out, and I didn't have anything to spin within my house. You know what I mean? So I would have to do everything on the show, sort of live, to check out different things.
So, you make a great point. So, MD, when you were a producer, there was a deep inventory of house music down there. So, how did you make that happen?
Actually, to be honest, a lot of it was there already. I mean, because WNUR had been since the 70s and had R&B, and like I said, I mean, house music started off as deep disco music, and so there were lots of neat cuts there. I mean, lots of stuff that I would even borrow and play at parties, because it was what we considered deep house, at the time. But really the Chicago house that was there, I mean, that's from record pools, that's from, Imports and other stores there. I don't think NUR bought any records during that time I was there. At least while I was producer, we didn't buy any records. It was all stuff pools and that were comped to us from Imports.
Okay. All right. Well, I gave you credit for that. I said, MD, look, MD got us back down here. So, okay.
Well, the problem with it is that I would take a few records home just to have them. You know what I mean? And it'd be like, I like this song. I just want to keep it right here.
Okay, hold on. So all the records were stamped WNUR. You should probably carve that out of your interview.
I should, but it's too late now because I'm trying to think. I used to because sometimes you couldn't find the records because people didn't file them back properly, etc. Right. I'm like, no, I'm gonna need this. Right. I'm taking it with me. Like, this is the bomb. This is awesome. I'm gonna need it. It was so ridiculous. And I had some. I had some. I found them 30 years later, and I displayed them at our thing that we had some time ago. This exhibit that we had, because I had a bunch of stuff at my house, and I never threw it away. Parents were still alive at the time, so you still had stuff at their house, right? And you didn't throw it away, so I kept it and did that kind of thing. So guys,
and I still have a crate. It's in storage somewhere. I still have a crate full of vinyl. Nice. And as such, one of my birthdays, probably about 5 years ago, I got a turntable because they saw I had some vinyl. I had nothing to play it on.
Well, we need to see what you should push some of them out. See if you have some originals. We might be able to sell them on the black market or something. You know what I mean? But no, it'd be good to hear. It'd be good to hear some of those old. We got a DJ set up. No way, Sweet MD is up in the house. I thought that was I was like, oh, he's such a scholar. He's got books behind him. No, we got a setup.
LL, I think we need to hear a little something. Don't you think?
You know what? Can we? Is that possible? I mean, I don't know. Can we hear a little something? I'm about to throw on my WNUR. Well, we don't have enough time, guys. I'm cutting this off in 10 minutes.
Okay.
I don't want to keep you all forever anyway. But so this is a Black History Month discussion. You all have been very helpful in talking about some of the people, the pioneers who came to Northwestern to assist, and you all as pioneers to continue. The Street Beat had become Street Beat when you all arrived, so it had to have you all as the foundation, and Easy Lee, of course, to bring people and bring it to the level that it is now, still involved. And I will say that, as much as so always concerned about sort of the purveyors of the music genre, because again, I've seen um, other nationalities critique jazz. If you look at jazz right now, the entire genre is critiqued and reported on generally by people of European descent, and they will guide what they believe is the proper form of jazz music. Just ask Robert Glasper, who was blasted by people when he performed. This is not jazz, because he's got a hip hop fusion. They're like, that's not jazz. Well, people told Miles Davis what he did differently was not jazz, and generally those are not people who are understand sort of culturally the music form and how it's evolved. And so I'm always sort of making sure, I want to make sure that people understand this music genre. Right now, of course, there's all kinds of nationalities who enjoy and love house music. The people who are making billions of dollars on EDM and house music are not people of African descent. But it's perfectly fine. But I think, sort of understanding the foundation of that is something that is we should think about. And besides Rob Olson being a staple there, there was a guy named VJ the DJ, this Indian gentleman who was, and I was like, I would always go like, how would VJ the DJ know anything about house music? Like, I didn't get it, you know what I mean? Because he wasn't even from like, but he wasn't just, he was playing hip hop too, you know what I mean? But I was like, do you remember some of the other people? And I pointed out some of the soul show sort of purveyors. Do you remember any other people who were sort of really sort of music lovers that surprised you, or house music lovers or hip hop lovers or was it pretty much, just Rob at the show who wasn't of African descent?
Oh, not African descent. Yeah, I can't think. I mean, most of those folks were Freeform or rock show. I mean, there was Deborah, who I think she was even a jazz singer in the Chicago area, and she had a show. Her show was actually right before mine on a Friday night. But people that weren't of African American descent, I can't think of anyone. I mean, Benny Devine, he was there, but he's black.
Magic Mike was Magic. You remember Mike? Magic Mike he's Easy Lee and T. Chablis. Yeah. He's a Chicagoan though, so I feel like I don't consider them because the Chicagoans, they were partying. They could actually dance on the beat on Rush Street. So they were Chicagoans. It's a house music birth form. So it's a Chicago birth form. So I expect them to, be purveyors. But people were coming in from other places, and I was like, wow. Do you remember Andy Moscos? Andy Moscos, who was Professor Moscos's son, he went on to have house music clubs in Amsterdam. I mean, he was on fire. He loved house music and took it global. And he's also the founder of Second City in Amsterdam. So he did it's a different name of the club, but he runs that too. Is still doing extremely well. Comedy club, improv club in Amsterdam. So there were lots of different people from Northwestern who took the music again all over the place, and very proud of Northwestern and WNUR's history. And making the music form what it is today. Just people don't write about it or talk about it enough. They talk about the pioneers, but where were they playing outside of the clubs? Where were they getting radio time? They weren't on BMX. You know what I mean? So it was KKC, us, HBK.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yes.
A little Columbia, but much later in the deal.
Yes, correct. But for a while, it was just WNUR because we had a really strong signal, and our signal went all the way out to the south side. I mean, I had people in the south suburbs that were saying, "Oh, I heard mix last night, or I heard your mix the other." Then I think KKC, they did something where they boosted their signal, and then they sort of took over the south side to the point where we started to have battles for 89.3. We even did a couple that. The battle for 89.3.
Oh man, someone's got to find out. Who do you remember anything about that party and who the people were who you talked to? Because I would love if there was a plug or a flyer or something for that. That would be so cool to have.
All I remember is Pink House.
Pink House. He passed, but yes, Pink House was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, Pink House was the big guy.
I found and whose name I saw on it that he's big in DJing now is Hugo Hutchinson. Hugo.
Hugo. That's Chrissy's husband now.
That's Chrissy's husband.
Yeah.
So he was a KKC guy. I don't think I really got as much of that. He's been at the station several times. We had a Valentine's Day show, one of our first Valentine's Day show, I think they were our guests, Hugo and Chrissy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I did not know that. We've got to talk to him about that. I would really love the KKC people to come on the show and just do a whole KKC retrospective and bring in, talk about Pink House, talk about their influence. Yeah, we loved KKC, but yeah, we killed them at midnight. They stopped, but when I was DJing, they stopped at midnight, and then their signal went everywhere.
And then all of a sudden, our signal just went into Chicago. Yeah.
And then we had calls, and then the phones would just be ringing. Phones would just be ringing, and people who, do you remember like people who you knew from grammar school? Is that Lauren Larry? Like they'd be calling you trying to figure out if that was really you. It was so interesting.
Yeah.
So
Friends
I'm gonna
and family.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up a bit.
Okay.
So guys, and we're gonna talk about a little bit about today and house music. We're gonna supersede sort of Black history and talk about the history of 2020 and 2021, where we are here today. It's a challenging time in our nation. Our health is on the brink. Our environment is on the brink of ruin and demise. And of course, our political systems, which affect all of our lives, are also on the brink right now. And you think about music and the healing powers of music. You all have been a part of the house music family and culture for over 30 years at this point. And you just mentioned the spirituality that house music has for a lot of people. And Farley talks about it all the time. There's now gospel house and things like that. Yes. What do you think about sort of house music's ability to sort of add to the positivity of our sort of health and wellness? You know what I mean? Like, can house music be that kind of bridge that sort of helps us move forward?
Yeah, I think so, and it's inexplicable, really. But just the way that it kind of makes you feel, and I've heard people say this all the time, especially as I've gotten older, is that if you want to guarantee that you're going to have a party with no drama, play house music at that party.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hip hop party, so there's going to be fighting and shooting, other types of music, but house music, people are just going to be dancing, feeling the music, having a good time. Nobody's trying to hurt anybody.
Yes.
No ego, pride. We just there having a good time, and that is sort of a healing power of it. And I wish that it could be more pervasive, especially in this current environment.
Yeah. When you use the word inexplicable, that is it, Sweet MD. I shouldn't be surprised. This is Sweet MD, so we need to. Hopefully, we can document this because these are words from a pioneer. This is Sweet MD.
So he's a scholar. He went to Northwestern. Interesting.
Scholar. This is the capital man, capital M. So there is something, and I tell people all the time, especially I have a set of twin girls, and they're like, oh, Dad, but they know who Shaka Khan is, they know who Stevie Wonder is. There is something about house music that is it permeates your soul. It is. And then it kind of affects the environment. I can't explain it. If I could, I would write a book and I would retire. But there's something about, and I'm not talking about, and now I'm about to be a Chicago house music snob. I'm not talking about, techno or whatever's going on in Detroit or whatever. But I'm talking about pure Chicago house music. There's something that I can't I can't describe. Words can't describe.
You know what? We're going to end it there. That is so rich and so powerful and so true. And I thank both of you all from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to become involved in house music. Without you all, I would not have been sort of involved in house music, honestly, other than, a partier, other than the person who's just trying to hang. Sweet MD, thank you so much for, again, being on the show and allowing me to be a part of the WNUR family. And Ira Brown, the I, thank you so much for allowing me to intern under you and become a part of your family. And I'm so happy that I've known you all for all this time, and I love you all. And for the Vintage House Show, and for WNUR 89.3 FM, Evanston, Chicago. You all give me the takeout line. Can you all still throw it out there like that? Give it to me. Give it to me.
All right, I'm gonna go first because if I go after MD, I'm not gonna say nothing. But so my tagline, this is the eye on 89.3 WNUR, Evanston, Chicago.
And I will bust out the old rap, but I won't do that. But
right,
I'll say you are
sweet indeed. Ooh.
On WNUR FM 89.3, Evanston, Chicago.
We are out, guys. Thank you so much.
Love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you guys. I'm ending. Bye.